Hi, hello. It's been a while since I've shown my face. I'm usually behind my animated persona, but today I'm trying to do something a little bit different. It's been a while since I made an art video, so I decided to do another art video, and recently my sister got these pair of shoes as she wanted me to paint for her. Now, I've never painted shoes before, so I thought it'd be an interesting challenge. I've also never airbrushed before, and all the research that I've seen online, it seems like people are using an airbrush to paint these shoes. So also a new challenge for me, and I thought I'd document the whole process of me designing these shoes. And I don't know, if it doesn't turn out well, if I don't like how the shoes look out, then I just not upload the video. So for this project, I got the basic leather paint kit from Angelus paints, because theoretically, if I owned these three colors and black and white, I could technically mix any color I really wanted to. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to buy certain specific colors for this project because I was worried I might be missing some colors, then I have to go back and buy some more colors. So I thought just the basics kit and just mixing my own colors would be a good place to start. And the kit also came with a leather shoe deglazer and preparer, because I guess like the shoes come out of the factory with a finish. So I had to use that to help the paint stick to the shoe better. And then I also just got paint thinner so that I can thin down the paint so I can airbrush it better. So to start off, we're using the leather preparer that came with the kit to remove the finish of the shoe so that the paint can stick better to it. Here I'm carefully just trying to get every nook and cranny because I was worried that the paint would fall off if I didn't get all the glossy finish off. And then I started taping up the shoe. I decided to start with green, but before I actually started spraying the shoe, I've never actually airbrushed before, so I had some acrylic paint lying around. I thinned it down and I decided to practice on this spoon and this clay pot that's now holding a squirrel foot fern. Just so, I can get a feel of what airbrushing is like, but after that, it's time to jump right into spraying the shoe. So I got some of these paint cards from Home Depot to help me out with color mixing, so I could put it underneath the paint containers and it would just help me determine like the final color and shade that I really wanted when I'm mixing paints. From practicing on the spoon and the pot, I learned that I didn't really need that much paint to fully cover a large area. But it's always a good idea to mix more than you really need, since once you run out of paint, it's really difficult to mix the exact same shade twice. So I started off mixing a base of green using blue and yellow, and in a separate container I mixed in the green with the white to create more pastel green, and then I added a little bit of thinner to it to thin it down to be more of like a milky texture for airbrushing. And now it's time for airbrushing for the first time on this purely blank canvas. For all artists, I think it's always a tough time when you first start off with a purely blank canvas, but I decided to jump right into it. At first I was wondering why the paint wasn't really coming out. It started to sputter and there wasn't really a lot of paint coming out of the brush, so I thought it was clogging in the airbrush, or maybe I didn't thin the paint enough, so I decided to pour a little bit more thinner in it. Turns out the air hose was just loose, so not enough air was coming out of the brush. Yeah, I know, I'm a big Dumbo. I later fixed that problem, but after that, the paint was really thin since I put more paint thinner into the brush because I thought it was clogging. I ended up having to do maybe 3 to 4 thin coats since there was extra thinner in the beginning. Otherwise, everything was smooth sailing. One thing that bothered me that I learned mid-spray was that the tape would not stick to the parts of the shoe that was cotton and not leather. And then so while spraying, the pressure from the air would just peel the tape right off. So that was a bit annoying and I had to try to figure out a way to carefully work around that. After that, it was just removing the tape and then covering up the parts that I painted and then removing the parts where I wanted to paint blue. Mid-taping, I decided that I didn't really want to mess with the heel of the shoe where the gold Puma was. One, because I tried cutting out a Puma logo and it was very difficult to sort of cut a perfect Puma out to block it off. But also I felt like putting that blue with the gold wouldn't look as well, so I decided to just leave that alone and just leave it white with the gold logo. Now to mix the blue. It was probably the easiest color to mix. It was just a lot of white and a hint of blue, but the outcome was more of a sherb blue or a sky blue. It was not really the blue I was looking for, and luckily I had that green that I mixed earlier lying around, so I just took a little bit of that green and mixed it in to give it that tiny hint of green to get the color that I really wanted, and I felt like it matched the green of the shoe more. So now it's back to spraying. I got all my dumb mistakes out of the way, and then this time I just sprayed 2 light coats of blue and everything started to look like it was coming together. And I was, for some strange reason, really satisfied with the way that the blue came out on the shoe. And it was here where my neighbor walked into what I was doing, and based off the way I looked and I was dressed while painting the shoe, they decided to come up to me and ask, "Oh, are you taking photos of bees?" In which I responded with, "Oh no, I'm just painting shoes." And then they said, "Oh, how special." And that was the entire interaction. Then I taped everything off again to prepare for the tan beige part of the shoe. So mixing this color probably took the longest. I struggled a bit with it. I started off with trying to create a raw umber, so I poured some yellow, mixed in a bit of red and a very teeny tiny bit of black. But it seemed like this black sort of had like blue tints in it. So when I mixed it into my starting like orange yellowy mixture, it turned out more green than I wanted it to. So slowly I had to add a bit more red and yellow back and forth to kind of balance it out and turn it back away from the green until I got like the raw umber color that I wanted. After that, I added some white into a separate container and added a bit of that raw umber in there. The outcome was a bit more yellow than I wanted while I was trying to match it with the cards. And it was here where I sat contemplating what to do. I was afraid to add more black into it because the black had such a drastic change and I didn't want it to turn that greenish tinge again. So I sat there for a really long time trying to figure out what to do, but eventually I decided to take the risk and add a drop of black. I was getting close again, but it also still gave off that greenish tints. So I decided to add a little bit more red, and then just very slowly I kept going back and forth with the red until I finally got a color which I would describe as milk tea. And here I did a little celebration because I don't know, I got really excited for spending so long and finally getting the color that I really wanted. And honestly, I was very satisfied with how nice that color was. And also here is where I decided to swap the color from my original plan of the beige color and the tan color with the leaves, because I thought I wanted the leaves to be more subtle. I didn't want to stand out from my original plan. The leaves were that milk tea color, but I felt like all the attention we brought to the leaf, it was that darker color, and I wanted the color blocking of the whole shoe to stand out more. So I decided to swap that color and make the leaves more subtle, and you know, the leaves would be more of an accent now. And afterwards I removed everything to see there were certain parts that I missed. Like I looked around, there were some spots that I may have missed, and then some spots that may have oversprayed over to other parts of the shoe. It was an easy cleanup. I just used a Q-tip, a toothpick, and some rubbing alcohol to rub out the parts that oversprayed, and then I used some of the leftover paint and a really fine paintbrush to fill in the parts that I missed. And now it's time for the leaf pattern. So what I did was I taped up the parts of the shoe where I wanted the pattern to be, and then I carefully cut out its shapes. Then I took a pattern of the Animal Crossing leaf and then turned it black and white and layered it on top of the shapes in Clip Studio. And then after that, I just took the tape shapes, put it on top of my drawing tablet to sort of trace out a stencil. After that was just a really long process of cutting out the leaves and creating the stencil and carefully placing it back on the shoe. And my hand really hurt from cutting out all these leaves. So now I just wanted to quickly mix together the same milk tea color, but a lot lighter and a lot more subtle, with some white and the raw umber we mixed earlier, and then just like a really tiny bit of red just to balance it out. And pretty much it's almost the same mix except minus the black. So this was a lot quicker and it created more of a white that would blend in more with the white of the shoe. Spray time. This time I had to move the brush a lot more closer to the shoe to make sure I didn't miss every different individual leaf, and to make sure, you know, I got every nook and cranny of the pattern to make sure I didn't miss out on any of the little gaps. After like 3 thin coats of paint, I decided to peel it off and, you know, just touch up any parts that I missed, any parts that I've oversprayed again, cleaning it up with a Q-tip and a toothpick, and then using leftover paint to fill in certain parts that I might have missed. And now for the little image of the nooks on the heel. Here I cut out the shapes of the heel again like I did with the leaf pattern, and I overlaid it on the little sketch I did of the nooks. Then I placed the tape on top of my drawing tablet to trace out the nooks again. But this time I'm not trying to make a stencil. I'm mostly just using this to sort of map out on the shoe certain shapes and where I wanted the certain parts of the nooks to be, because this was such a tiny image for me to draw. It was a lot easier to just use tape to help me, almost like a ruler, to map out certain parts before I fully sketched it on with a pencil. You know, after lightly sketching everything on, it's time to paint. Now this part was probably the most hardest and probably took me the longest to do, besides like the leaves, because it was such a small drawing. I didn't have any brushes that were small enough to touch up certain parts and details like the eyes and the nose and whatever. I had to hold the shoe really close to my face and then very carefully with like a really steady hand I had to paint it in. And you know, since I didn't have brushes small enough, I actually had to use a toothpick and slowly like dip it into paint and slowly dot it on for like the eyes and nose and certain other details of the whole drawing. And now lastly, it's time to add the finisher to seal up the paint of the shoe. Here we're using the high gloss acrylic finisher. I don't know why I decided to hold it like a makeup tutorial. It's time to spray. I added it into the airbrush and, you know, added roughly 2 to 3 coats. It's been a long journey with my first ever custom sneaker, and it's finally done. And now without further ado, I present to you my custom Animal Crossing sneaker. It took a lot of work. Honestly, I'm very happy with the outcome for my first time ever painting a shoe. Of course, there were a lot of hiccups along the way. I wouldn't say the shoe is perfect, but for my first time, I had a lot of fun doing it. Anyways, that's pretty much it for today. Let me know down below what you think about my first time ever painting a shoe. And if I ever do it again, what theme you want to see me do next time. Don't forget to subscribe if you like my stuff. Share this video with your friends. Leave a like. And bye.